Today's Thinking Thursday is going to start with a personal story. About 3 years ago, I was writing a manuscript by hand. I had a beautiful purple moleskin notebook, which was an A5. And normally, when I'm writing on a computer, I write about 1,000, 1,500 words a day, or on a really good day, I'll write about 4,000 words. And I was keeping this rule that I was only allowed to write 1 page a day, which meant that my handwriting was absolutely minuscule. This thing would have required several lenses of glass in order to be able to read, because I was fitting in so many words into this one tiny page. But I was insisting that I was going to only write a page a day, so I was averaging about 1,500 to 2,000 words per tiny page. And I'd got to the stage of being about 165,000 words into the manuscript. Then one night, I'd been working on my manuscript very romantically in a candlelit open mic night where I'd done a little bit of singing, and then most of the night I was just working on writing my book. And then on the way home, my backpack was stolen. It was stolen from the back basket of my bicycle while I was waiting at traffic lights. I know the exact moment where it was stolen and when it was stolen, but unfortunately it was never found. So that book was gone. And initially, all of my friends were highly traumatized and upset because they'd seen how much work I put into this thing. And I was like, okay, well, eventually I'll feel okay about starting again, and then I'll just start the manuscript again. About 6 months later, I started working on this book again, this time on a computer, and suddenly the grief hit me. And what I want to talk about today is other writers who've gone through that grief. So, firstly, I think we all know the story of Ernest Hemingway, whose wife took a suitcase on the train in Paris, which had his manuscripts in from his early writings. And when she left the suitcase unobserved, it was stolen. So in 1922, all of Ernest Hemingway's early writings were stolen on a train, never to be retrieved. And in honor of my stepmom, whose favorite book is Under Milk Wood, I'm going to share the story of Dylan Thomas losing that specific manuscript 3 times, only to have a friend find it in a pub. He was a Welsh poet who clearly liked to write, well, inebriated, or at least lubricated in the pub. But there's other stories from history as well. So for example, the Sibylline books from ancient Rome were these sacred prophecy books that were referred to all the time in times of crisis to let the ancient Romans know how things were going to pan out and to help them find serenity in a really difficult situation. And these books were so important that they were kept in the Temple of Jupiter to keep them safe. However, the Temple of Jupiter burned down and took out all of their most sacred books. So maybe the firefighters just didn't get there on time, but maybe we should think about just keeping all of our manuscripts locked away in fireproof safes. Another one is that Emperor Yongle, or Yongle, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but I'll have it written like here, in the 1400s in China, had thousands of scholars write an entire encyclopedia of all human knowledge. Yes, all human knowledge. This is an enormous manuscript, truly unbelievable in size. He was determined to have all of human knowledge captured in written form, and so thousands of scholars had been working on this thing. And then, of course, in 1860, the manuscript was mostly burned in the Opium Wars. Didn't see that one coming. Yeah, fire and manuscripts are not friends. We should learn a lesson from this. And then in 1936, Edna St. Vincent Millay, who I will do a video on because she's super fabulous, had her manuscript of Conversation at Midnight burnt when the Palm Hotel in Sanibel Island in Florida burnt to the ground. And yet, this same year, the literary world also suffered almost a complete loss of one of the most famous manuscripts ever, and one that I had to read at school. If you've read Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck, it nearly didn't make it into this world. In 1936, Toby, John Steinbeck's dog, made confetti of half of the manuscript of Mice and Men. And John Steinbeck said that this knocked him back about 2 months of work, which, to be honest, is pretty good going. I mean, he was a full-time writer, but still, half a manuscript in 2 months, that means you get to a full book in like 4 months. I take about 2 years to write a manuscript, so good on him. But in the process, he had written to his agent and he said this. So this was on May 27th in 1936. He wrote, "Minor tragedy stalked. My setter-pup left alone one night made confetti of about half of my manuscript book. 2 months' work to do over again. It set me back. There was no other draft. I was pretty mad, but the poor little fellow may have been acting critically. I didn't want to ruin a good dog for a manuscript that I'm not sure is good at all. He only got an ordinary spanking. I'm not sure Toby didn't know what he was doing when he ate the first draft. I have promoted Toby Dog to be Lieutenant Colonel in charge of literature." Now, I'm very grateful that John Steinbeck didn't do what I did of sort of go into literary paralysis for 6 months and then slowly fail to rewrite the book, because Of Mice and Men is one of the profound pillars of our literary capacity as humanity. It is an amazing book. I don't really know how to read the fact that there is a moment in the book where one of the main characters accidentally kills a dog. Maybe that's just a soft warning to Toby if he ever decides that manuscripts should remain on the home menu. But it is a really great book that I would highly recommend, and even if you had to read it in school, it is one of those rare gems where being forced to read it in your English class doesn't actually ruin it. So if you know any writers out there, maybe for their next birthday or for a holiday, just gift them with a fireproof safe to hold their manuscripts in, or just follow them with a dictaphone. Or maybe we just lock all our writers in padded rooms and have them write all day like the perfect monkeys that they are. I don't know, but we should be more protective of our manuscripts, because the most highly curated ideas of mankind and the most belovedly felt stories are often those that have been slowly and steadily put into those manuscripts. So please do whatever you can to protect your manuscripts or the manuscripts of the people around you, because we forget how valuable they are until they're lost.